Our next speaker was inspired by a most insignificant event. Tonight, he will share it with you and why it suggested a speech. Please welcome Charlie to the lectern with his speech, I seem to recall.
Sometimes I just amaze myself. Well, not just because I'm cool, but because I'm human. Because that gives capacity. That's unbelievable. Madam Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, this is what happened to me. One of my customers called me up and says, hey, I want to go to Muncie, Indiana tomorrow, fly there. Instantly, a 3-letter identifier from Muncie jumped in my head. Now, you might say, well, what's the big deal there? Well, the big deal was that I wasn't even thinking about that. I wasn't trying to remember it. But as soon as he said the word Muncie, that came right into my brain, which got me to thinking, our memory is such an incredible thing that we have. We have all this stuff stored away in our memory, and it just appears out of nowhere sometimes, just like it did to me. Just like it did for Sherry last week when she had Derby trivia, didn't she? She was right on it. And we're doing trivia again tonight to see what kind of memory we have. But just consider all that stuff that somehow or another is just locked away in your brain. And it lasts for a lifetime. Do you remember your first childhood memory? I'll bet you do. I remember mine. I was like 3 or 4 years old. And my grandparents, who I was with during the war, used to put me in a backyard with a little harness on the clothesline. And I decided that was too confining. I took it off and I took a walk. Now, I was maybe 3, 4 years old. And I would walk maybe, I don't know, a mile or so to a marshy area. And the policeman picked me up. And I was down there having a good time exploring. And guess what? I knew my way home. They drove me right up to the house. And maybe, but that's the first thing I remember, just exploring as a child. And maybe that was a key to the rest of my life, because I've been a wanderer for the rest of my life. So maybe you recall things like that. But think of the variety of the memories that you have. We remember images, we remember facts, we remember emotions, don't we? But one of the key things that we remember, and this is very key, is we remember smells. Now, isn't that odd that we can remember smells? But yet, if you think about in the evolution of the human body, what was important to us back 1 million years ago? Well, maybe we should recognize by smell the things that we ought not be eating. So all of a sudden, all these memories, maybe they had a purpose at some time. And we remember experiences. We remember the good ones, and we remember perhaps some of the not so good ones. Hopefully, most of the time, we remember wonderful experiences that we had. But for some of us, some of those experiences that we remember are really traumatic to us, aren't they? And they bring back emotions that make us very uncomfortable. Now, some people, they go through life and they can't put those memories even aside. And I know I have some memories that if I ever think about them, they make me a little unsettled too. But none of us, all of us remember the same way. Some people remember faces. They will never forget a face. Now me, I might meet someone today and I wouldn't even recognize them tomorrow. But what do I remember? I remember numbers. Yep, I remember numbers. And I'll relate to you a little story about that. Years ago, I was with one of my students on a trip flying, and we stopped in Panama City. We were going to stay on my boat overnight. That was before cell phones. And the restaurant at the marina was closed. And I said, well, we'll just order a pizza. We go down to the payphone, look up the phone number for Pizza Hut, and we order a pizza. Wonderful. Except an hour and a half later, we still don't have our pizza. So it's back up to the payphone. And I pick up the payphone and I start to dial. And my student says to me, wait a minute, got to look up the number, don't you? I said, no, I remember the number. And I dialed the number and we went on. So that was not a big deal. Except now it's 3 months later. And he's sitting around in the lobby telling people what it was like flying with the boss, you know, the guy that's the main man here. And he says, and I happen to be walking by, and he says, he's freaky. He remembered that doggone number for Pizza Hut. Now it's a couple months later. And I said, well, heck, I still remember that number from Pizza Hut. And he said, no, you don't. What do? On the phone, dial that number. And what's the response? Good afternoon, Pizza Hut. How can we help you? So that's my memory thing. But sometimes we even remember things we didn't even know we knew. Has that ever happened to you? All of a sudden, some piece of information that you didn't even know existed in your head, suddenly it's there. That happened to me on a test that I took, you know, for graduate school. And I was taking this test and it had questions about biology and art. And I'm taking a test and I know the answer to these questions. And I'm saying, how could I possibly know the answers to these questions? I'm a doggone engineer or a pilot. I don't know stuff like that. But yet, there it was. Who knew? Kind of weird that we have all this stuff and it's stored away. Now, as you get older, people say, oh, you know, older people have a tougher time because they don't remember well. Well, the answer is, yes, they do. The problem is the database now is so large, it just takes longer to filter through it. So that's why older people have trouble with memories. But we've been given this gift. We have pleasant memories and we have unpleasant memories. But hopefully, given the time, you'll sit down and you'll enjoy those pleasant memories. And maybe you'll even make a speech. I'm Toastmaster.